You're listening to Period Story, the podcast where we get behind some of the myths and misconceptions about periods. We chat with women about their period story, their first period, and their journey ever since, and we open up a conversation to help break taboos and stigmas around menstruation. I'm your host, Lanice Brothers. I'm a registered nutritionist, women's health, hormone, and menstrual cycle coach, and the founder of Eat, Love, Move, a nutrition and well-being practice. Welcome to today's guest. On today's episode, we have Susan Sheehan. Susan wants every woman to connect with herself, returning home to listen to her intuition and be empowered to take action for her life ambitions. In today's culture of fully scheduled lives, she knows what it feels like to feel overwhelmed and disconnected while knowing you have so much more to offer to the world. By connecting to herself, including embracing her menstrual cycle, she has changed her lifestyle to enjoy heightened energy, making more conscious life decisions, and focusing on what makes her soul sing. She now invites women to live with more ease while inspiring them to make the changes they desire. Susan is the founder and CEO of Back Yourself Mentoring, a women's circle and network of women backing themselves and each other. Through mentoring, both mentor matching women one-to-one or through her group mentoring programs, she knows that surrounding yourself with creative, generous, and life-ambitious women enables you to thrive consistently in your life and career. She hosts women's circles and mentoring groups in London, Ireland, and Mallorca, empowering women to create tangible change to lead a purposeful life with ease and a smile. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lanice. Hello.
So let's get into the story of your very first period. Can you share with us what you remember that happened?
Oh, I actually do not remember having my first period. Let me share with you a little bit of background in terms of culture and where it was coming from. As you can tell from my accent, I'm Irish, born in the late 70s in a small community, raised Catholic, went to secondary school with the nuns. So it's a conversation and a topic that really it wasn't something that was discussed or brought up. And when I got my period, it was about 13, maybe 13 and a half. I'm sure if there was a therapist that was on here, they would probably say that I've blocked it out, maybe. My introduction into my period for the first year or two was one of pain, incredible cramps, being doubled over, being looked after by my mum with hot water bottles and hot drinks, and migraines. And for the first couple of years, I used to take a day off school. And while that probably sounded like fun to some young women or girls, I liked school. So it was a very mixed introduction. I would love to be able to share what a wonderful opening and blossoming experience it was, an empowering experience. It really wasn't for me. Which is why I speak about it a lot now. Though that experience continued from 13 through to my probably mid-30s, actually. Not consistently, thankfully. But yeah, my first 2 years, or I would say probably the first year or two, was a day off a month. It was probably irregular. It's still irregular. And it was one of cramps, severe cramps and migraines. It's not the experience. It's the experience ahead, really, and also, which I find really fascinating now as I embrace it more and more and look back more in my life, is that my mum had the same. So we didn't really know between us. This was normal as well, right? Even though my sister didn't necessarily, well, I'm not too sure, but she certainly didn't have the experience that I had. So I think that's interesting in itself, I think.
So given that you said that your mom was had the same sort of period, and she thought it was normal, is that how you grew up, thinking that period pain was normal?
I think it was more that obviously I had friends at school, and their experiences would have been different because we spoke a little bit about it. I think especially initially it was when we all got it. Yeah, I can remember like there being a little bit of flurry of excitement in the cloakroom and stuff. And remember, it was all girls as well. But then I think less and less we spoke about it. But I do remember there was a certain like almost, I don't know about a badge of honor, but I guess I've just used that phrase around, the different stories. So I knew there was different experiences, but my experience was my experience, and my mum's experience, because it was similar, I guess that's what both of us knew, right? But obviously, I was aware that there was other women not having the same experience, and then to go throughout my, I guess, early teens and into my 20s and 30s, I certainly knew that was not normal, but it was my normal. And your normal is just your normal until it changes, I think, really. Yeah.
So going back to being at school, you said that you were raised Catholic, you went to school with the nuns. Dare I ask if there was any sort of education around menstruation, around periods that you would have participated in?
No. So we're talking about, I was in school from 89 to 94, secondary school. So no, there wasn't. I do remember there being sex ed, which would definitely not have been sufficient either. So at least, there was a nod towards that, but I really don't remember it. And we certainly wouldn't have had any of the, there was no products, menstruation products either. When you think about that now, you think, oh wow, what were we supposed to do? And we were school full of young adults, young women, girls and women. So no, there wasn't any.
So it was the conversation that you were having with your friends and a kind of almost a whisper network of, oh well, I'm using pads, or I'm using tampons. Was it that sort of thing?
Yeah, and like I say, I actually initially it was probably more when we were like in first year. Well, this is what it was called in Ireland, right? First year was when you were 12, 13. And it was when everyone, I guess, was flurrying too, and literally it was flowing, right? And the conversation was flowing then. But after that initial flurry, and I guess it was the circle that I was in as well, there was quite a big circle of us. But I guess once it started, then it was just like, now life is like, now we get on with things, right? Like just we move on, and I guess you're talking about maybe boys and maybe girls, or you're playing. For me, it was playing sports and stuff. So I kind of got on with life, and so I know that my attitude was very much like, this is it, yeah, that it was something. I guess for me personally, it was more about. I worked around my menstrual flow. I worked under it, over it, around it. It was something that I got, to use these words now pains me a little bit, but I tolerated it. My attitude was one of, so this is necessary. It is part of being a woman. I was certainly not embracing it. And I was just, I guess, putting up with it, like that was the attitude. But I'm a very quite pragmatic woman anyway at the best of times. That is to a different level, I think. But yeah, my approach to it was very much like, this is happening to me, and I very much just want to get on with life. I used to play team sports, like I said. I used to play camogie, which is an Irish sport, and this was an inconvenience, if anything. And very much just treating it as inconvenience or pain, and therefore let's make the most of it, I guess.
So how did you go from seeing your period as an inconvenience and tolerating it to, as I said in your intro, to now embracing your menstrual cycle? That's quite a big leap. So tell me a bit more about how you got there.
Oh, it's a huge leap, and thank you, because it's quite nice to move on as well. I think it's important to reflect back, but as well, there was a pivotal. So, like I said, so throughout my teens, that was my experience. There was a pivotal moment probably about 3.5 years ago. I used to so throughout my 20s and 30s, the pain used to come and go, right? I didn't always have the migraines, more or less left after being teen. And then in my 20s and 30s, it was more about I would get cramps, or I would, the PMS was sky high. So I always can empathize with women that PMS is sky high. But about 3.5 years ago, I woke up one night in the middle of the night and I had got my period, and I went to the bathroom and I literally could not get off the bathroom floor. And I was in such agony. And this that was the worst I had ever been, like ever. And I just remember lying there for hours, and even my husband came into me and I was like, you can't do anything to help me. But he stayed with me that night. And I went, I am never going through this again. I need to find a way through this, right? I need to find a way that I am more at ease with this. And I would use that word ease now. And so I started looking into it, and I started looking for, I guess I just started putting it out there and going, I need to find another way to be around this. And I came across a woman called Claire Baker, whose teachers are, I'm not going to remember their names now, but they're with the Red School. And some people will know their book, The Wild Power. That's it. And I did an 8-week online course with her, and I started journaling. And since then I have been journaling. And I think this, before I get into that, which has been part of my healing journey, and what I would now call a spiritual journey, if you wish, you don't have to call it that. I think even turning my head towards it with a little bit more kindness, and just even honestly, like a little millimeter of more kindness and more acceptance and wanting to understand, I think ease the pain a little bit. Like genuinely, I think, when you have the outside tap on outside, and it's like it's really, really tight, and it's the tightest it is so that it's not leaking during the day. And I feel like, and it's really tense, and you're holding it all in, and literally you're holding it all in, and then you just release it just a tiny, tiny bit. I think that's what I did, and just literally, I can even feel it now. Releasing my body that little bit allowed me to allowed some of the pain to go away, not just the physical, but the emotional and the mental as well. And so it was a start of a journey. And it is a journey because I'm still learning something new every month. So what I started to do was I learned to start journaling. And I'm not a consistent journaler, so anyone listening, this was not my practice of journaling. I had tried it and I would never got into the habit. But what I would do is get out a notebook, and I tried several different ways, but at first it was like put down the headings of physically, how do I feel? And I might only start with one word, and then emotionally. And I actually used to put emomen, which is emotional and mental together, to get into the habit of actually even writing a word and associating with it. And so every day I used to do this. So I waited until the start of the next period, because I had no idea, by the way, what day I was on or anything. I was not tracking in any way. So I waited until the first day of my period, and I started writing down day one, physically, how do I feel? Emotionally and mentally, how do I feel? And she used to do spiritually. And at that time, I wasn't I was still on the start of my journey. This was really the start of my spiritual journey, I think, or very conscious start to my spiritual journey. And so I used to write down a word or two. That's where I started. Like literally, that's where I started. But of course, once you create a little bit of space and start writing a little bit, you might write. I found myself writing another few words and then another few words. And so, if I'm in spring, I was like, oh, I'm feeling like I'm coming back out into the world, and it seems to be a little bit more life around. Oh, and I'm getting different ideas coming along. So I did that for a couple of months. And then I started to expand it out because I wanted to see the trends, I guess. I started to see a few trends, literally even after 2 or 3 months. This is what I always say to women that I speak to. Like, even after 2 months, I started to see these trends. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I added food because I've always been into food. So I wanted to know, why do I want certain foods, or what would be good